I'd love to introduce Roger Sutton to us now. We've had some fantastic conversations over the years about how faith groups have been working together to make sure that social action is achieved across the city and to partner with all the incredible third sector organisations, public bodies like yourselves, to be able to just see transformation happen across the city. But we realised that there was some more strategy that was needed, and so we moved ourselves from the Active Faith Network into Transform Lincoln. And we really believe this is going to be a platform by which the faith groups and partnerships with all the other bodies in the city can really see Lincoln transformed and flourishing into a place where people are without poverty, people have aspirations, we're able to be a city of innovation. And so let's just listen to what Roger has to say about how that can be achieved through how people can work together across the sectors.
Hi, it's just great to be part of your conversation today in Lincoln as you think about the future of the city. Lincoln, like many cities around this country and around this world, are facing huge challenges with the devastation this pandemic has created. We're starting perhaps to get our heads a bit above water now, but as we look around us, we're faced with massive challenges, aren't we? I think the first thing to do, of course, is say a huge thank you to all those who were able to stand with us during this pandemic. We're so thankful to the health service, the GPs, the nurses, all those involved on the front line of services. We're thankful to those who, in the public services also, who provided much needed support and help. And a special thank you to the voluntary sector, the community groups, and specifically the churches, actually, who played a fantastic role delivering prescriptions, sorting out food distribution, and just generally standing with people in their time of need. A massive thank you to all those of you who helped. Now, we're going to go through this massive challenge, which is of the recovery process. We've been through the crisis, but now we have the recovery. We're going to be faced great challenges, probably the greatest challenge we've faced since the end of the Second World War. However, with challenges also comes opportunities, doesn't it? This will be actually, I think, one of the greatest opportunities we have ever had to reimagine what we want our cities to actually look like, the kind of places we actually want to rebuild. We have a window of possibility to do things differently and to imagine better outcomes for our places. There's a poignant story in the Bible. It's in the book of Nehemiah. And it's about a man who comes back to his home city and finds that the walls of the city, the protective structures around the city, lay in ruins. And he mourned at what had happened, as we also mourn at what's happened to our places. But he did more than mourn, because he wanted to do something about it. And he rose up, and rather than be a rabbit caught in the headlights, he became a rebuilder, a renovator of the city. Now, this is a story many hundreds of years ago, and some of it has no relevance to us today whatsoever. But actually, interestingly, the values and the principles that he worked to, I think, are as relevant today as they were then. Firstly, he had a commitment to a unity of vision and purpose. He went around the walls, he walked with some of the leaders of the city, and he looked at the main issues. They prioritized what needed to be done, they worked what needed to happen and how they were going to do it. You see, you won't approach the rebuilding of Lincoln, the renewal of Lincoln, with 10 different visions. In fact, you won't rebuild the city of Lincoln with 2 different visions and approaches. There's a need for one plan, one vision that we can all stick to and become part of. Only by pulling together in the same direction can we really meet the challenges ahead. This means no Lego, no egos, and no logos. One strategy working together for the sake of the city. Now, it's a huge challenge to us because it cuts right against our independence, our need for prominence. It will require from us a huge dose of humility if we're to get the job done. This is a challenge both to the public, the private sector, but it's also a challenge to the voluntary sector, and it's a challenge to us as church leaders as well. We are one body. We are not independent, competing entities. Becoming that and being that does not serve the city, and it doesn't honor Christ. It's born of selfishness, it's born of self-interest and division and factions and disunity. And they will not only slow us down, they will stop us rebuilding the city. So firstly, we need a commitment to unity of purpose. And secondly, we need to build from the ground up. Nehemiah, interestingly, went directly to the families of those who own the houses and the businesses along the city walls. And he said to them, you need to do your bit. You need to bring your gifts to the party. You need to bring your skills and assets, because that is true cooperation. That's true co-production. Nehemiah didn't begin with a top-down approach where, your bit of the wall is done by somebody else. No, you do your bit of the wall. You link with those who are doing their bit of the wall, because each played their part and built their part of the wall. Surely we've had enough of top-down approach. Surely we've had enough of the old way of doing it. It's been proved wrong, actually. We've had some communities, certainly in our city, which have had millions and millions and millions of pounds spent on them, but actually to no real effect. We need to work with people, not do things to people. We must approach the task of rebuilding from the ground up. Co-production from the ground up is an asset-based approach. Let's not repeat the mistakes of the top-down model. Let's not do things to people. Let's do things with people. Let's respect the place, its story, and its people. Thirdly, I think we need a more ambitious vision, actually, because the easier thing for me and Nehemiah to do was to say to the people, let's see how far we get. Perhaps we'll go 50%. Perhaps we'll go halfway. And if we get halfway, then perhaps, that's a good outcome. But he didn't say that. He said, we're going to rebuild the walls. He had an ambitious vision. I'm sure when there was much against the project, he wished he never said that. I'm sure when all the critics came in and many of the challenges they faced, it would have been much easier to settle for halfway. But he didn't. He went for the whole thing. He had a compelling vision. We need to do more than just rebuild our cities to what they were. We need to begin to ask the question, what could renewal look like? What do you want Lincoln to look like? In 10 years, in 3 years' time, what is your vision for the place? Let's get some ambition to this task. Let's set some ridiculous goals. How about no food banks across Lincoln in 3 years' time? What would it take to do that? You could do it. It can be done. Several cities are actually setting that as an ambitious goal. What about no NEET kids across Lincoln in 3 years' time? That's kids neither in education or training. What about getting at least 50% of those people who are in debt now out of debt? What about making Lincoln the best city in the area for employment and starting new businesses? What about making Lincoln the city where social isolation is dramatically reduced? What about making Lincoln the friendliest city? I don't know what's on your heart. I don't know what's in your mind and your vision, but let's get some ambitious vision for the future. Nehemiah had to face a huge range of criticism and fear-mongering, but he held fast to the vision. I know what people will say, there's no money, central government will let us down, we can't do this on our own, our budgets have been cut, the problems are too great, we're exhausted, we're in recovery, we need to batten down the hatches and protect what is left. I know that. I've heard it. I've heard it in the statutory authorities. I've heard it in the public sector, the private sector. I've heard it in the churches, actually. But this is not the time to think that way. This is the time to be ambitious. This is the time to draw on everyone's resources. This is the time to be unified. This is the time to dream. What do you actually want? There is no greater opportunity than there has been now to do that. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Do not let this go by. And then lastly, the other value we will need at this time, probably more than any other actually, and I think it's a spiritual value. I think it's the value of relationships. Because Nehemiah didn't just bring together people to rebuild the walls. He brought together a people, a rebuilt people. And the activity itself established the most vital aspect, and that was the flourishing of humanity. The people were renewed, not just the city. It wasn't just the walls that were rebuilt. People's lives were rebuilt. The need for relationship is absolutely core. Friendship, camaraderie, trust, kindness, forgiveness, love, patience, reconciliation. These will be the things that establish a new city coming down from God. We need to increase our levels of respect and love and peace amongst each other and trust. And the Christian faith adds another factor to that of relationship with each other, and that is relationship with God himself, as seen in Jesus. Nehemiah wasn't ultimately empowered by civic responsibility. He felt he was on a mission from God. He knew God was interested in the city and its future. God saw the city, and God was going to do something about its rebuilding. Lincoln is a great city, but like every other city, it's taken a big hit. You have so much going for you. If you work together, if you work from the ground up, if you have a more ambitious vision, and if you can truly love each other. But it will take more than that, I think, actually. I think it will take a power beyond yourselves. It will take prayer and a heavenly imagination. The chief exec of my city, in the midst of the financial crisis in 2008 to 2010, when she had to cut vast swathes of budget from the council. She wasn't a religious person, actually. She was daunted by this task. And every time that she passed a church, she wasn't a religious person, but she believed in God. Every time she passed a particular church that she knew, every morning on her way to work, she would say a prayer. And this was the prayer: Lord, give me the ability to do things differently. Give me an imagination beyond my capabilities, and help me restore the city. We need not just to turn to each other and to ourselves. We need to turn to God at this time. God loves Lincoln, and he's waiting for you to join him in his restoration plan. God bless you. God bless Lincoln.